In today's video, I have a brand new technique to teach you that will surely change the way you approach your future artwork. I'll show you how to combine a few easy to get art supplies to create a magical piece of art. So sit back, relax, my friend. We're about to make a beautiful fantasy crushed crystal mirror. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to another video. So, what you're looking at right here is a mirror that I bought at Hobby Lobby. They always have their mirrors marked 50% off. So, I got a beautiful 18-inch mirror with a beautiful gold frame for 20 bucks, which I think is a steal, to be honest. So, I've been wanting to make a fantasy film and crushed crystal project, and this is going to work perfect for it. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to get out a chalk marker. A chalk marker, as you know, you can wipe away right off of a surface with a little damp paper towel. So my idea was to create this mirror that had a border of beautiful crushed crystals, crushed glass, some rhinestones, and have a color shift effect to it. So the first thing I did was drew out almost like a center of an agate design. In the middle of this tracing that I'm doing, we're going to leave that alone. That's going to be the visible mirror at the end. Of course, you can do whatever kind of design you want. You could do just a small area on the edge. I wanted a big, beautiful sparkling mirror, so I decided to go with this kind of design. So once I put this marking down to create the area of where I was going to work, I pulled out some fantasy film, or Angelina film, some call it. This is a very fine film that is chameleon. It has a chameleon effect to it. So it shifts from green, like a hunter green, to a rose goldish copper color. It's really, really pretty. And it comes in different colors. Like that was just mother of pearl that I showed you. And coming up next week, I'm going to show you how you could turn this paper into this design here. And we'll make something fun with that. But anyway, moving on. I wanted to put this on the surface before I laid down my crystals because I wanted to have my crystals color shift. So crystals are clear, as you know. Crushed glass is clear. Any of the sparkling things that we use for geodes, they're usually clear. You'll be able to see this underneath them and it will reflect up through them and create an amazing effect. Wait till you see how beautiful this is. But anyhow, what I did was I just kind of laid it on the mirror and traced that line that I had made, that outline, and cut it so it fit in those areas on the outside. It doesn't even need to be this complicated. You could just cut pieces of this and have it, like little squares or whatever, and put it in those areas. In the end, you're going to see that I had a few open areas on the mirror that I didn't cover, and that's fine. It just adds to the effect. So the way I'm going to attach this temporarily to hold it down so I could work on it is to use my UV resin. You could also use something like glue. This is just a temporary way to hold it down until we get to the next step. So I took a little bit of my UV resin and I just basted it onto the back of the paper, the film, sorry, and then I laid it on the mirror's surface and hovered my UV light over it until it was set, which was about 30 seconds. And that made it stick to that surface. Again, we're going to be putting crystals on top of this film, so we're just trying to get it to lay flat until we have the weight of those on top of it. So I just put it down there after pasting that UV resin on the surface. and hovered my light, as I said, for about 30 seconds. It didn't take long at all because it's just a very thin layer that you're putting on that piece of film. So now you're going to see it's attached there. And I'm just going to do that in a few areas of the film just to hold it down flat so that I can get to the next step, as I said. I have a link for you in the description if you want to buy this film. Believe it or not, it's pretty inexpensive. It was for me when I bought it anyway. And yeah, I'm going to show you next week how to do a different technique with it. That is absolutely phenomenal. It is so beautiful. It includes, using a heat gun to shrink this stuff and turn it into just something out of this world. It's so beautiful. You guys know me. I love my sparkle and I love my color shift. Anything that creates that illusion for me makes me happy. So I'm going to continue to just paste some UV resin on the back of this film, put it down on the mirror, and get it secured for now until we can move on to the next step. I'm not going to show you the entire mirror because it's just the same thing over and over again. Again, though, if you want to use something simple like some clear glue, you can do that. You don't have to use the UV resin. I just want results that are instant. I don't want to have to wait for things to dry. That's why I use the UV resin. So here it is. I have the whole outer edge covered in the fantasy film. And I'm going to now go with I'm going to take a Pebeo fine liner, Cern Relief, sorry. You could also use gold acrylic paint to do this if it's thick enough. I'm going to take this outliner and I'm going to outline the original chalk line that I made. That's going to be my border. So I accidentally started and didn't hit record. I apologize, but I'm just showing you right now. I'm going over it again. I did 2 layers of this stuff. Just trace over the line. Very self-explanatory. You're going to make just a little barrier to contain your crystals to the outer edge of the mirror. You don't want them going to the inner area of the mirror because that's where you want to be able to look into the mirror and see your beautiful face, right? So we just want a border to contain our crystals, and I used the Cern Relief to do that, as you can see here. This stuff dries pretty quick. I think it took an hour and it was ready to go. So now I have some beautiful iridescent pebbles I found at Hobby Lobby. They were $5 a bag. I have some larger size iridescent glass pebbles. I'm going to show you. See, these are bigger. These are like micro. The ones in the bag are like a micro pebble. So I'm going to use both of those. I'm also going to use some crushed glass. I have some vase fillers from Michael's. That is just like a little clear, like chip of glass. I think it's actually acrylic. I don't think it's glass, but it looks like it. And then I have these little rhinestones, not rhinestones, little acrylic diamonds that I got from Hobby Lobby. I have diamond dust, which I'm going to save to the end. You're going to see, I'll explain how to use this. And then I also have a beautiful glitter that I'm going to use at the end. I'm not using that in this cup. So the last 2 things I showed you do not go in this cup. Get a cup and make yourself a brew of beautiful sparkling things. I don't care what you have, as long as they are clear, like these crushed glass and pebbles, they will work. So I'm just filling those products up into the glass, minus the diamond dust and the glitter. And I'm going to combine them into a Ziploc bag just to mix them around. Because I filled the cup up, obviously, too much. But look at this beautiful parfait of sparkle, huh? Isn't that beautiful? So again, I just dumped them in a Ziploc bag just to mix them around. And then I poured half of the amount into the cup because I just put too much into that cup to work with it. But anyway, so I filled the cup up halfway. And then what I did was I cleaned up all the white chalk marks so that they're, not seen. You're not going to see them anyway, even if you forget to do this step because the crystals are going to cover them. But I wanted to make sure that I got as many as I could off of there. And then I pulled out my other resin. Now, there's a difference. I used UV resin to tack down the paper. That is an instant set resin. Now I'm using an art resin, which will take 24 hours to cure. So I get out 2 cups. When you use an art resin, usually it's a 2-part resin, which means you have a part A and you have a part B, and you need to use the same amount of both bottles. Now, I don't have cups with measurements on them, so I just use the lines on these plastic cups to do the measuring for me. So in each cup, I filled up to the 3rd line on the cup, part A, which is the resin, and part B, which is the hardener. I combined the part A into the part B, and I mixed them together for 3 minutes. It's pretty straightforward to use this stuff. Make sure you have a mask and you're in a well-ventilated area when you do use it. You can do this step with the UV resin as long as you have enough UV resin. I did not have enough UV resin, so I had to switch over to my regular resin. Now, you may say, why do you add part A into part B? That is because part A is the resin and it's much thicker than part B, which is the hardener. So when you go to mix them together, if you pour the A into part B, you'll have an easier time getting it off the sides and bottom of the cup. It's not impossible to mix the other way around. It's just easier this way. So what you want to do is just mix the two together for 3 to 5 minutes. And you want to make sure you scrape down the sides of the cup and scrape off the stick multiple times throughout the mixing process throughout that 3 minutes. This way, any unmixed hardener and or resin will be thoroughly incorporated and you'll be able to have a nice, solid, hard resin finish when the project is complete. Once it's cured, I mean. It'll be a nice, strong finish. You'll have no weak spots. So what I usually do when I mix up a large amount of resin is I'll mix it in the original cup and then I'll dump it into a clean cup to make sure that I have not missed any unmixed areas. I want to just make sure it's really, really mixed well. That's the one thing you have to remember about this stuff. But anyway, as I was saying, you can use UV resin to do this part right here. It's just that you're going to have enough, and I did not. So what I did was I poured some of that resin just over the surface of the crystals and started mixing it in. You want to just coat them in it. You don't want them floating in it. You just want them to be sticky, essentially. So I start with just covering the surface of whatever's in the cup. And if it's not enough, then I'll add a little bit more. But it was enough. So now I took my crystals and I filled in that entire outer edge with this mixture. Be careful when you do this. You don't want to accidentally fling one of those crystals onto the mirror surface that you're going to be seeing your beautiful self in. You want to make sure that stays nice and clean. So what I found to be very helpful was I put the crystals down closer to the rim of the mirror and pushed them outwards towards that gold outliner. This way, I wasn't throwing a big pile of these things right up next to that border, taking the chance of them flying onto the mirror area where I don't want them, okay? So once you fill in that entire border, then you're going to come in with the 2 products that we didn't add into the cup. and you're going to sprinkle them on top, and here is why. You want to obtain, the maximum amount of sparkle. If you add the diamond dust into the resin mixture that's in the cup, the crystal mixture, the resin is going to coat it, and it's so fine you're barely going to see it, if at all. If you just sprinkle these two things on top of the wet crystals in the end, you're going to get so much sparkle out of this, so much more sparkle. So I saved a little bit of those little clear diamonds from Amazon, some of the glitter and the diamond dust, and just sprinkled them on top very lightly. I find the less you use, the more it sparkles. It's really weird. You would think it would be the opposite, but when it comes to something like this diamond dust and glitter, just a very light dusting over the entire surface will provide maximum sparkle, I promise. So we're going to sprinkle these all around the border. We're going to let it cure overnight. When I come back, I'm going to clean off the mirror surface, and you're going to see just how beautiful this is. I am in love. I cannot believe the vision I was seeing on my kitchen table when I was done with this. It was glorious. By the way, how to hang? It comes with its own hanger, so we don't have to worry about it. So here we go. I took it outside, but it was so sunny that I couldn't even see where I was filming. It was just a nightmare. So I left this little bit in here for you to see. It's very hard to see the fantasy film out there. It was way too bright. Once we get in the house, I will show you how that fantasy film looks underneath. But this is so beautiful. If you went to buy something like a crushed crystal mirror online or at a store, you'd be paying at least $150. And this is custom. We could design it the way we want. And here we go. Now I'm inside. Look at this beautiful rose gold, copperish, hunter green underneath, color shifting. I wish you could see it in person because it's even 100 times better. It's absolutely breathtaking. I really hope you run out and get yourself a $20 mirror, and really try to do something like this. Again, I'll put the links in the description for you. I still have to go in and clean the mirror surface, which, I didn't do at this point yet. There's still a little chalk marker line I got to get rid of. And yeah, I was just excited to show you how beautiful this is. Again, please try it. Even if you do just a small little mirror, as long as you can find one with a rim, it will definitely work. So again, my friends, very easy project to complete. I'm going to put all the links down in the description. I want to thank you so very much for joining me today. And until next Sunday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, happy creating.